I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where husband and wife team go over all the characters, story, and backgrounds of the worlds we play in video games, because that's what we love to do together. We lore together.
Yes, and just a little caveat at the beginning, you may hear our little buddy in the background.
Yes.
He should be asleep.
And he is so wee.
But he does still make noise.
He does.
Yes, and this is episode 23.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell you what we're doing yet.
Okay, so we're going to be here in suspense, but in the middle of that suspense while you're waiting, please feel free to follow us on Twitter at LoreTogether, or you can send us an email about any suggestions you may have for when you do know what Mystic's going to be covering, loretogether@gmail.com. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/loretogether, so if you'd like to get our episodes earlier, you'd like to be into our live streams where occasionally Buddy likes to scream out in the background when it's time to be over.
Or if you just like to support us as new parents.
Yes.
And if you are listening to this on any platform that allows reviews or ratings, please do. We do appreciate those.
Yeah. So for sure, iTunes and Podchaser, but there's plenty other places you could rate and review us, which helps other people get to hear about the awesome lore we like to do. So, and those of you who have, thank you so much for doing so. We appreciate and heart you.
Yes. So I haven't done this since episode 1, but I think I'm going to do it more frequently, where I'm going to describe a scene before we actually get into the meat of what we're talking about. Try to set the mood a little bit. Plus, I got to do some cool stuff in the background in terms of audio for that.
Yeah.
We're flying over the bay in New San Francisco in the mid-21st century.
New San Francisco, built over the old San Francisco then?
We'll get there. It's the big city. Bright lights cover the skyscrapers as cars fly through the air, and holographic advertisements overwhelm your senses.
So we are definitely in some sort of, what do I want to say? What genre is Blade Runner?
Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, we're in this kind of cyberpunk feel. Doesn't sound noir yet, though.
Place has been rebuilt since World War III, but we're going to take a detour from the glitz and glamour to a little place called Chandler Avenue.
Chandler Avenue, which is all the Friends fans visit. They make their mecca there like at least once a decade, something like that.
It's in the rundown mutant district of Old San Francisco, not far from Coit Tower.
Okay.
Coit Tower is a landmark.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I haven't been to the Bay Area. Please forgive me.
Welcome to the world of Tex Murphy, private investigator.
Tex Murphy Private. I have no idea what the heck any of this is at all, whatsoever.
You've actually seen me play a Tex Murphy game for a little bit. In fact, it's the only one I've played.
Oh.
And we're not talking about it this time.
Oh, okay. So what are we actually talking about?
Well, we're going to cover the series in general and then cover one of the earlier games. I feel it's the one that kind of started the series proper in terms of how people view it now.
Okay.
So we're going to go back to 1989 with designer Chris Jones. He has been the designer for all of these games.
Okay. And with the unfortunate name of Chris Jones, because there's like a bajillion of those around the world.
There's 6 games in the series. As of this recording, there's another one being made.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of those 6 games is a remake of the first game, kind of. It's the main character retelling the story to someone, and they've embellished it and added new details and that type of stuff. So it's not a pure remaster. It's a retelling.
It's a retelling.
Yeah. The series is a campy noir cyberpunk B-movie franchise known for its use of full motion video with most of the character interactions and cutscenes.
Oh, one of these games, the full motion video is always kind of hilarious to me.
Yeah. Only 2 games did not use what we consider today full motion video, and those are the first 2. The tech just really wasn't there yet.
Was it like still pictures instead or something like that?
Think still pictures or very limited animation. You know, you'd have characters blinking or slight movement, but you wouldn't have video like we do now.
So this is a point and click adventure game sort of situation?
The first 2 are, yes. They are point and click adventures. The first one also has like a little flight simulator aspect to it too.
Huh.
Once you get to the third one on, everything is first person to the point that they are technologically advanced for the time when they first came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. To be honest, the only reason I bring it up is because I like to watch Pushing Up Roses on YouTube, and she just recently went through essentially the mystery game that was based on the X-Files.
Okay.
Where you played as some random other FBI investigator because the Mulder and Scully, like Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny, there was no way they were going to have time in their schedule.
It's
to do all the
amazing how
filming, yeah.
what people will be involved in these games sometimes, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Full disclosure,
Yeah.
I have only played one game in the series. The most recent one, which is called Tesla Effect.
Oh, okay.
Technically, it's called Tesla Effect, a Tex Murphy adventure. From what I've been told, it is not necessarily the best starting point into the franchise. It was a Kickstarter project that brought Tex Murphy back after 16 years.
Oh, so this is definitely something made for fans then. This was not something made for a newbie.
It did a decent job of introducing the world and the characters, but they do kind of expect you to know a couple characters to get the more emotional impact that they probably want you to have.
Right, exactly.
So, the vast majority of what we'll be talking about in this episode is going to be from the game Under a Killing Moon, which was the first one that kind of had that full motion video aspect to it.
Under a Killing Moon sounds like the subtitle for a sequel to Primal Rage, the fighter game, which I loved on the Super NES. That was just my jam. Primal Rage, Under a Killing Moon.
I'm not going to do a full retelling. I'm going to touch on major points. We're going to do some world building for the whole series.
Okay.
I'm not going to do a then this, then this, then this, then this like I usually do. I'm trying to get away from that, I think.
Well, I will say that when you do those kinds of rundowns, half the time it is mostly more about the lore, but a good chunk of the time also it's because it's a game like The Dig, where they only did one game.
Right.
So or Skies of Arcadia.
Where
all
the only lore we have is the story that is the game.
Exactly,
Right.
you know.
We have a little bit more here.
Okay.
There's also been novelizations of some of these games that we're going to pull from. I'm not going to differentiate which is which. There's not a huge difference between them, but there is more embellishment in the novelizations usually.
Okay, great.
Just a side note also, there is some controversy with Guinness World Records over that 16-year period between the games.
Oh.
So the category, or the award or listing or whatever it is, for longest wait for a sequel to a point-and-click adventure, apparently that's a category that has a title or an award.
I'll let you finish this, but I've got something to say about Guinness.
That record is currently held by Monkey Island at 8 years, 242 days.
So the 16 years doesn't count because...
Guinness says that Tesla Effect is not a sequel, but a reboot, which is not true. It literally continues from the last scene of the last game made, Tex Murphy Overseer, which ended on a cliffhanger, and this is the continuation.
Okay.
And if you count that as the reboot, since that is the retelling of the first one, it's still a longer time frame than Monkey Island because this is the direct sequel. It's literally the next scene.
Okay. Side note about Guinness Book of World Records, they're very problematic now because we stopped kind of caring about Guinness Book of World Records after a point, and the only people who kept caring about them happened to be dictators of countries that, you know, the United States in the last decade would suggest that you don't visit. So they're giving all these awards to like, oh, you have the biggest statue with a fountain feature in the center and all this other stuff. And like these crazy things. And it's giving attention to these dictators.
I see.
Yeah, it's problematic as all heck.
Guinness is problematic even if you take it outside of that context.
Yeah, like
We have watched people who do speedrunning.
right.
And there are speedrunners who their only sole credit is they got an arbiter or whatever to verify themselves to Guinness.
Oh yeah. Was
when
this the Carl Jobst video or is it
yeah,
somebody
Carl
else?
Jobst is a guy
Yeah.
on YouTube who does a lot of speedrun videos.
Yes.
And if you want speedrunning videos, we can tweet all of them all the time.
We'll make a thread later, yeah.
But Guinness is just like, oh yeah, it was totally verified by this other guy, and the other guy is in on the deal. Like,
Yeah.
you know, or Twin Galaxies is in on the deal, but Twin Galaxies had a lot of favoritism and nepotism and all this other stuff going on, so it's all suspect.
Yeah. Carl Jobst has a good video about some of that, so we would suggest that. This, you could tell that we're huge nerds because this is the stuff we watch for fun on the off time when neither one of us is researching for this
Really
show.
quickly, 3 channels I would watch for speedrunning: Apollo Legend, Carl Jobst, and Summoning Salt.
Yeah, Summoning Salt I think is my favorite now. Anyway,
So the most broad strokes of the Tex Murphy series is you play as Tex Murphy, a private eye in New San Francisco in the mid-21st century. The majority of the games in this series are first-person adventures where you explore environments, talk to people, solve puzzles, find clues, all that stuff.
in the 25th. So I feel like this is the kind of stuff that when Conan O'Brien had that bit where it's like, in the year 2000.
And as you mentioned, the point-and-click adventure games, the first 2 games are more like the typical point-and-click adventure games like The Dig, which we covered in episode 7.
Yeah.
And, I mentioned Monkey Island. We will get to that eventually
Yeah.
because that is going to be another one that we'll have to cover. And even though I said this is like a B movie, once they started using this full motion video, you got some known actors in here.
Ooh.
And I'll just run through a few of them and some of their things because that's kind of fun to do with these things. I did this for The Dig where we did what big voice names or big writers were behind it and everything.
Oh yeah. So this is the most important part of my job, reacting to big names.
So we got Margot Kidder, who was Lois Lane in Superman 1, 2, and 3,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Kathy Luntz in the Amityville Horror.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that, but yeah, she was big.
We have Russell Means, who played Chingachgook in Last of the Mohicans opposite Daniel Day-Lewis.
See, okay, so earlier Mystic was looking at videos or pictures from the Last of the Mohicans, and I'm like, why are you looking at Daniel Day-Lewis so much? He's like, it's tangentially related. I'm like, really? Are you sure? And he's like, yep. So that's why.
We have Kevin McCarthy, who played Dr. Miles J. Bennell in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Ooh, the original?
I do not know. I don't remember which one it was. He was the star in it, though, so it's not like just some small role.
Okay.
He did have a role, and I'm only bringing this up because we brought it up a couple episodes ago. He was in Just Cause in '95 with Sean Connery. Like, he was in that movie, too.
Oh my gosh. Oh, P.S. R.A.P. Sean Connery. And wait, okay. Mystic shrugged, but he's the reason why I've watched any Bond movie ever. But he's gonna shrug that Sean Connery passed away. I mean, come on.
Sean Connery played some great roles.
Yeah, he was good at
As a
Goldfinger.
person, I feel he is somewhat problematic.
Okay, fair. He was a good actor. I will give him that.
But also, if you want to go back and listen to Just Cause, that was episodes 18 and 19. We have Tanya Roberts, who played Bond Girl.
Ooh.
Stacey Sutton in the Roger Moore film A View to a Kill.
I haven't seen that one yet. You
I don't
only...
like Roger Moore that much. That's probably why.
Wait, which is he the one that's the Bond in Live and Let Die?
Yes.
The one that takes place in Harlem?
Yes.
Which, yeah, that's all we're going to say, guys. It's just watch it. It's of its era. Ugh.
Barry Corbin who was in War Games and No Country for Old Men.
Yes, I know of that guy, definitely.
Clint Howard, who played Flight Controller Cy Liebergott in Apollo 13, and 4 different Star Trek characters from the original series to DS9, Enterprise, and most recently in Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery.
Oh, yeah, he was the best Orion in CSI Discovery. Now, you know Clint Howard, and the reason you know Clint Howard is he is the actor when you look at him, and I say this with full respect because he's a decent
He has a look.
He has a look.
Yeah.
You have never known anyone with such a big head, but yet such beady eyes. It's just it's an interesting combination, and I don't say that to like diminish his look, but that's just who he is.
Funnily enough, I remember him more for his role as Cy Liebergott than I do for most of his Star Trek roles.
Well, I remember his first Star Trek role because
that's Balok.
Yeah, because that was. I remember it was very obvious that they dubbed over his child voice.
And the last big name, we're going to get some lesser known people here, but the last big name.
I'm sorry, I was going to interrupt you because one thing I want to mention about Clint Howard. So Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards were a thing, and they would have Lifetime Achievement Awards, but they would give it to characters like Godzilla and such. Then they gave it to Clint Howard, and he took it so seriously, they were like, we could never give this ever again.
So the last one, and you're going to love this, it's voice only. He doesn't appear
Okay.
in video form, but he is voice only. James Earl Jones
What?
as the big PI in the sky, also known as God.
James Earl Jones is God. James Earl Jones, once again, just speaking as somebody from space. Literally, that's like half of his career is like, I am in space now. He's got Mufasa, you've got Darth Vader.
Right.
I mean,
So, and
I'm
this-
the man from space.
Yeah, and this is not to say the lesser known actors are not worth it either. Keep in mind that this is a B movie. They all deliver good performances for a B movie.
Yeah.
And some of them have reprised these roles for decades now. There's been
Ooh.
4 games of full motion video. 3 of those are in a continuity with each other.
Oh.
So, because the one is a remake, so that one doesn't
Right.
quite count. But, so you have Chris Jones, who is the designer of the series, plays Tex Murphy. Kind of like how Rand Miller plays Atris.
Ah, okay, yeah. Which I can forgive because it worked out. Yeah.
And like I said, they're playing these for all these games. So Under a Killing Moon, Pandora Directive, and Tesla Effect have all had some of these characters for 20 years now with the same actors.
Wow.
Artist and level designer Doug Vandergrift has played Rook Garner in all of them. Chelsea Bando, Tex's sometimes girlfriend, has been played by actress Suzanne Barnes.
I feel like I recognize that name somewhat distantly, but I couldn't tell you from where.
The mutant Clint the Bum has been played by actor Steve Barnes. There seems to be no relation to Suzanne Barnes. Also, Clint is no longer a bum in the latest game, so he's moved up.
Nice.
And the mutant cook, Louis Lamintz, one of Tex's friends, has always been played by Randall Edwards, an attorney from Utah.
Oh, so they were like, hey, do you want to try an acting job? And he's like, sure. And it turns out he was decent at it.
This is one of his 2 roles as an actor. He has 3 credits for Tex Murphy and then 1 for another game. I think it's called Amazon or something back in like 94. So that was his first game. Then the
Oh.
Tex Murphy series is the only other thing he's done.
I wonder if it's for the Amazon Trail. So when they first...
It was not. I remember
Okay.
the Amazon Trail was not that.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Now, I've mentioned mutants here.
Yes.
So let's dive into why there are mutants.
Yeah, so unfortunately you say mutants and I think of Fallout, so let's totally
There's
erase
actually a little
that.
bit of a weird... I literally found this maybe an hour before we recorded.
Oh,
I found this post on the unofficial TexMurphy.com website, which is a fan forum.
okay.
Kevin Y from December 2015 basically is saying how there's a lot of similarities between the Tex Murphy universe and the Fallout universe, and that they both have, post-apocalyptic war. They both have mutants. They both have a company named Robco. They both have anachronistic technologies in there. So it's just kind of like this weird little coincidence thing going on. They
Right.
both have a designer named Chris Jones.
True. True. That's just, I mean, that makes you put the tinfoil hat on for sure. For sure.
So yeah, that was kind of fun to find, and I literally found that as I was doing my last minute research. But so we have World War III happens, and as a result of the fallout and all this other stuff, we have a new class of citizenry that had to be created.
Right.
We have mutants and we have norms.
So I'm assuming the norms are what we think they are. They're just regular
Yes.
old humans. What are the mutants?
The mutants are people who have been mutated by the fallout. It's not always going to be something that's even visually represented. There's one character who is listed as a mutant. I believe it's Chelsea Bando, who is listed as a mutant but has no mutation. And other characters like Rook Garner, I can't tell what his mutation is, but he's listed as a mutant.
So they could pass as a norm,
Yeah.
but they're technically a mutant. Okay.
And Tex is not a mutant, but he lives with the mutants. He lives in the district.
Yeah.
So,
And so are mutations in this game kind of like just funky looking exterior features?
for the most
or-
part, Clint the Bum is a mutant. He has like a flesh thing over his eye. Louis Lamintz is a mutant. He has like scars and weird teeth and stuff, but it's not crazy like, 2 heads or anything like that. Or
Okay.
even something like the FEV is not a thing here.
Okay.
But mutant was literally added to the census as an additional checkbox for veterans who had come back mutated from the war.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
So, and here's the weird thing. So all the games take place after World War III. And I can't actually tell you when World War III happens.
Do you think that's intentional?
I think I'll get to why in a second. I don't think it's fully intentional, but I don't think it's unintentional either.
Okay.
It gets kind of convoluted. I think there's a lot of wibbly wobbly stuff going on. For instance, our friend, well, let's start. Obviously, it's after World War II, so it has to be after 1945
Right.
because 3 follows 2. Duh.
Right. And we're in the 21st century.
Yes.
So, right.
Our mutant friend, Louis Lamintz, the cook, was a human serving in World War III, and he was born in 1985.
If that stays correct in the universe, he is a year older than I am.
Right.
Okay.
However, another of his friends, Rook Garner, served in the same regiment in the war
Yeah.
and allegedly has been running his own pawn shop since before the Eisenhower administration, which was from 1953 to 1961.
Okay, something's not right. Unless part of the mutation is that you
That is a possibility
long-lived.
I considered,
Yeah.
but he would still have to be going to war in his 50s
Right.
at the very
Yeah, they
earliest.
usually don't let you fight that old.
Right. It could also be a typo on the wiki, because again, I haven't played all of the games. Mm-hmm. Or it could be just a one-line thing. And here's the other thing. When the war happens is unknown because of this contradiction we have just based on these 2 characters.
Okay.
However, the more recent games have cast Tex Murphy as an unreliable narrator whose memories do not align with reality or the past.
Right. So now they're just leaning into that.
The next game will likely fill out some of these missing pieces because it is a revisit to that first game.
Okay.
But they're also going to incorporate the other games too. Literally, the tagline is Tex must revisit some of his most gripping cases in order to decipher his true past and prepare him for an uncertain future. So they're probably going to fix any inconsistencies.
Okay. All right. So that is forthcoming, essentially.
Yeah, I believe it is a 4-person team making it.
Right.
They're essentially fans making it with permission. So it's just going to take a long time, especially with COVID and real jobs,
Right.
quote unquote,
Right.
and also other stuff. But they have announced it. It is called The Poisoned Pawn.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So we'll just take that there are mutants and norms.
Okay.
In good sci-fi fashion, this has become allegory for our world and the way we perceive the other.
Oh, so the mutants are the other, of course.
Obviously, having this different class of citizen has led to the rise of certain groups, such as the Crusade for Genetic Purity, a radical political right group of anti-mutant extremists.
Gosh, I wish that didn't sound so familiar.
The organization has a process for initiating those willing to join the Crusade. Aspiring members have to pass a genetic screening to prove they are norms.
Okay. I will say that probably isn't the worst idea because I remember watching the documentary Welcome to Life or Welcome to Leith, where there was somebody who was trying to make it like a all white Haven town and was trying to take over the town.
Right, I do remember hearing about that.
And then he went on a talk show and it turns out he was like 12% African American.
Yeah, wasn't he saying it was like genetic drift or something and it's blah, blah. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah, he was literally like his great grandparents were
Yeah.
black. He just didn't know.
So if you join the organization, you have to follow these 16 degrees of indoctrination. I couldn't find out what they were. But the final stage was visiting the orbital resort station Moonchild.
Moonchild.
Do not know where that name came from off the top of my head.
Orbital Resort?
Yeah, it's a space station.
Okay, so it's a vacationing space station, it sounds like.
That's the story. The official statement says that the Moonchild had been funded by private contributions, and it's like it's a space station, basically.
Okay.
We'll get back to Moonchild later on.
Okay.
They, the Crusade for Genetic Purity, are closely tied to the Law and Order Party,
Oh.
a quasi-fascist political organization which started as a small band of rabble-rousers in San Francisco.
Why does this sound so familiar? Mystic, why
So here's
does
the thing.
this sound so familiar?
I was completely unaware of the political undertones to this. You think I would have known about them all? It's
Yeah.
a noir detective novel, essentially. It's a cyberpunk novel. It is a B novel. Those
Yeah.
all usually deal with political aspects. They all deal with real life things. I was like, oh, this will be fun and jokey, just like I thought Just Cause would be, just like I thought Beyond Good and Evil might be, just like I thought Skies of Arcadia might be. And guess what? They all have the most depressing stuff in them.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know what the lesson is in this, the lesson is everything is political, even if
Because everything is political.
everything is political. Everything is political. Even to avoid the political is a political statement. So that's the lesson. Moving on, because I can understand. Like, you look back to stuff from your childhood, and you're like, "There's no way there's anything that's actually hampering this." And then, like Mr. Rogers, you're like, "He's so pure and free," and it's like.
Then you realize that he has
He
a video of him washing his feet with the black postal worker because
Right.
there was problems in the country about.
I mean, you realize in certain ways he's a dirty little socialist too. It's like, oh my gosh, like you can't escape it. You can't escape it if you will always find it somewhere. You can't really hide from it. All right, moving
All
on.
right. So since 2032, the president of the Law and Order Party has been Robert Knott, Knott.
So, but I like the idea that it's like he's not who we want.
Who built this very powerful organization through strong political connections such as legislature, mayor's office, and police force. They are dedicated to controlling the government and driving the, quote, freaks out of town. Literally, there is a big sign in their HQ saying, the only good freak is a dead freak. These people suck.
Okay, all right. So, speaking of which, this kind of reminds me of in our real world. I'm gonna get political, and I'm really, really sorry because I'm not trying to. So, when I was younger, I used to watch really bad talk shows. And one of the things that would come up a lot on these shows, like Sally Jesse Raphael and Maury Povich and stuff, were people who were born with a different outward gender expression than what their quote unquote chromosomes were supposed to be. Which at the time they were called hermaphrodites, but now they're called intersex.
Right.
So, a woman who outwardly presents like a man because her hormones cause her to be bald and have a flat chest and everything,
Right.
but she has a uterus and stuff. And I remember finding that intellectually fascinating, just the idea of having to live with that kind of dual identity. So whenever we talk about people saying there are only two genders and that's it, there's only two sexes, I think back to, have none of you watched the old Sally Jesse Raphael shows that talked about all these intersex people that are literally born that way?
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing here. It's like you can't, especially if you did it serving your country, like you didn't know this was going to happen when you decided to sign on the dotted line and give your life to your government.
And of course, there's fallout everywhere. So there are some people who are just immune to the radiation changes, and there's some people who are not.
Right.
And this your talk of, I just read this earlier today, your talk of our idea of gender norms and biological norms. We were talking about Star Trek Discovery not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And there is a character on there named, and I'm not going to go with the current, we haven't seen the latest episodes, but Tig Notaro plays a character named Jet Reno. And Tig Notaro had breast cancer.
Yes.
And had a double mastectomy.
She had to. She was going to die otherwise, yeah.
And people will actually refer to Tig Notaro as him sometimes if they are first meeting Tig, or they see Tig at a distance, because her figure, she has no breasts.
Okay.
And it's just like, maybe we should get away from this idea, because she clearly is female.
She's also very much an outspoken lesbian. Like one of her most famous bits is about breaking up with her girlfriend, like at the worst time.
So if we're going to be talking about the norms of society, we need to start broadening our horizons a little bit.
Okay, yes. And that's Lore Together getting political. Like, we're not saying who you should vote for, but what we are saying is let humans be humans no matter how they humanly express themselves.
Humans are not black and white. Humans are always a spectrum of gray.
Spectrum of gray, with maybe a little bit of extra colors put in there that we didn't realize were there. Okay. So, moving on to how this relates to the allegories of our world in this game.
Another group the Crusade is affiliated with is the Far More Dangerous, and prehistoric Brotherhood of Purity.
Prehistoric?
Literally, they've been around since before written history.
Originating from where, though?
The Far East.
Okay, so they're like, are they a mysterious group that like the West didn't know about until later
Don't know
on
that
in
quite
history?
exactly. They have been in favor of purity and eugenics since their original formation, as I said, in the Far East. They are highly secretive, very selective in their membership, and for centuries survived only on an oral tradition.
Yeah, there's still a lot of yikes going on with that. So much yikes. Anything that involves eugenics, I just, just very suspect of it. You know what? Like, for example, Nikolai Tesla, a lot of respect for his work. He was into eugenics. Very sus.
I'm not going to touch on Tesla in this game or in this episode.
Let's not.
So we're going to actually stay a little bit here in the Brotherhood of Purity because they do have a very long history that we can kind of touch on and talk about real people and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Even if this is all fiction, let's get that out of the way.
Okay, so we're still discussing fiction. This is lore together.
The Brotherhood of Purity helped hasten the collapse of the Roman Empire once the empire no longer suited their goals.
Interesting. I could see that happening. It says hasten, not single-handedly.
Right. They
that
helped
makes sense.
bring it to fruition. Once the empire started collapsing, they helped it go faster.
They helped bring the barbarians in the gates, essentially.
In the 3rd century, a group called the Docetists set down the history and goals of the Brotherhood in a document that would come to be called the Secret Doctrine.
What an original name. I never would have guessed.
When it comes to, we'll get to it, but I think this is tying in with a lot of the stupid occult stuff. It's always like some super weird name or it's some very bland name. It's never something that's actually intelligent.
Right.
Many pivotal and powerful figures of the Middle Ages became secretly affiliated with the Brotherhood of Purity. While Emperor Charlemagne was not deemed intellectually suitable for the Brotherhood, his closest advisor and confidant, Hugo von Turenne, was a high-ranking member. His influence on Charlemagne drastically affected the course of history. That makes sense. And the Spanish Inquisition was instigated by one radical member who held a high position in the papal order.
That would also make sense. Probably also had a bit of a torture kick in them because that's what the Inquisition did.
Throughout the Middle Ages and into the 20th century, other branches sprang from the Brotherhood. The Crusades were in part associated with one of these branches.
Okay, which would continue with the papal connections.
Right. Eventually, the main body was able to pair off the splinter groups through bloodshed and civil war. Most of these conflicts have been misrepresented by history, which in and of itself proves the extreme and far-reaching power of the Brotherhood.
Ooh.
Basically, it's like, oh, they're not totally there because it's the conspiracy theory of they are there because there is no proof that they are there.
The Illuminati.
Yeah.
Literally the Illuminati. Okay, so... Okay.
However, known members have included Henry the Lion, Duke of Saxony and Bavaria.
Okay.
Otto the Great, King of Italy and the Holy Roman Emperor from 962 to 973.
Okay.
Philip of Swabia, King of Germany, 1198 to 1208.
Okay, yes, that makes sense. I could see that.
Conrad IV, King of Germany, King of Italy, King of Jerusalem, King of Sicily, and Duke of Swabia.
Weird.
Yeah. Swabia, I think, is part of Germany.
Okay, yeah.
Frederick Barbarossa, Holy Roman Emperor, King of Italy, King of Germany, King of Burgundy. And then we get 4 names that are not quite the same. Bishop Klingser,
Okay.
the Count of Acera,
Okay.
Ecbert of Meran, the 13th century Bishop of Bramberg.
The 13th century Bishop of Bramberg.
Here's the fun thing. All these names are real people, or at least real titles, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
But some snooping also finds that they are all from the book Spear of Destiny by British author Trevor Ravencroft, which is a book about occult power behind the spear which pierced the side of Christ and how Adolf Hitler used it in a bid to conquer the world.
Huh. Okay.
Ravencroft claimed that the book was based on research, quote, using mystical meditation, end quote. So this book is decidedly in the fiction category.
Yeah, we here at Lore Together do not support the idea of mystical meditation as a way to do any sort of research that is valid. So he just sat with his thumb up his nose for a few hours and said, I sense that these people know about the spear. Wow. Christian,
These names are not people who own the spear or anything, but these are the names that, like, all these names were in the book. And
In
I
the
only
book
found
itself.
this because I was trying to figure out who the heck the Count of Asera is. And there was like 3 different names. And I'm like, all right, let me look for this Ecbert of Moran. The only place it shows up that I could find was in this book.
Christian conspiracy theories are just the weirdest. The weirdest sometimes. I'd rather believe Greek mythology after a certain point. Just the insaneness of like whose bloodline is tied to Jesus
Right.
and all that stuff.
We did mention the Spear of Destiny
Spear of Destiny is
and
definitely
Hitler's
a rock.
attempts to use its power to control the world.
Right.
With a group as powerful and occult and ancient as the Brotherhood of Purity, who's going to be involved? But there's Nazis in here somewhere.
There's always. Oh man,
Fun
it's like
thing.
a bad roach infestation. You can't get rid of them.
Heinrich Himmler and Adolf Hitler were not members.
Oh, they weren't. Were lower members of their group?
No. Himmler, in his search for the occult artifacts, which is a common staple in fiction from Indiana Jones, Wolfenstein, Hellboy, etc., the Nazis loved their artifacts.
Oh yeah, the old power. Yeah.
He found a copy of The Secret Doctrine and showed it to Hitler, who then used it for some of his atrocities and his backing of atrocities.
So he wasn't a member, but he used the information?
Right. Because now the brother has a problem. They are in the background organization. They are a shadow organization pulling strings, changing world events from the shadows. And now their ideals of purity and eugenics have been brought out into the open. And they tried to correct this mistake, but too many splinter groups have formed.
Right.
I think the Wikipedia literally called Heinrich Himmler and Adolf Hitler madmen.
Ah, okay.
Basically, I think the idea is they were an inelegant. The Brotherhood likes to use a scalpel. Himmler and Hitler were basically using a sledgehammer.
Right. They were basically an inelegant beacon for
Yeah.
the ideals that this fasci group wanted to use. Okay. All right.
Now,
It's still eugenics o'clock. I still want to go home.
the Nazis, in their quest for the occult artifacts, as we mentioned, this is a common trope,
Yeah.
seem to have come into possession of the Haba.
The hubba, or the haba?
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Habuh.
Haba, I'm just gonna go with that
Yeah.
because I have no other basis to correct
It is
you.
a crystalline bird that seems to hold great significance and power for the Brotherhood.
Okay.
In fact, it's necessary for the Great Alluvion. I had to look up what Alluvion was. It is...
Wait a second. Okay. Is it a mirror?
No. That's Alluvion. That's...
So alluvion in Dragon
This is
Age.
Alluvion, and this is a real word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes me think, of course, as alluvion,
Right.
Eluvian in
Right.
Dragon Age, which we talked about. Well,
Back in mini episode 2, yes.
okay. So yeah, so that's what I was thinking about in
Yeah, so-
in episode
Alluvion
mini episode 2. Yeah.
is the wash or flow of water against the shore, a flood, an inundation. Other synonyms include bath, so the great cleansing. Let's just go with that.
I suddenly just imagine it's just a very mystical sneeze, like an angel just went. "Achoo!"
So the Brotherhood eventually hires Tex Murphy to find the Haba under the guise of a stolen item of a wealthy countess.
That
There's
is an insane amount of like weird interconnected hubbubaloo.
Oh, we're not done yet. That's all we're going to do for
Oh.
Tex Murphy's arc in that. So there's a theory on why they need it, and I can't figure out what it means. Listen to this.
Okay, I'm listening.
The secret doctrine teaches that the earth is wrapped in layers of etheric forces. Vril, a form of energy, may be derived from them. Theorists speculated the Haba serves as the controller to channel Vril in order to be useful and manipulate the astral plane or tap into the telluric currents that form a grid over the etheric body.
Okay.
I don't know what I read.
That is some David Icke nonsense, guys. Like, I'm expecting anything about lizard people next. It's just insane. No, but it does. Okay, I see what it's trying to make sense of. Essentially, the idea is that we've wrapped the earth in energy layers like an onion. So like an ogre, it's got layers, and essentially those layers interacting with each other have a power called Vril, and the Haba helps channel it for these specific purposes. Now, once you started talking about these like astral planes and stuff, I'm like, you need to define your terms, good sir. But that's where
Suffice to
I'm
say,
at.
it is basically a bunch of pseudoscience. And as far as I can,
worse than pseudoscience.
Yeah.
There's nothing pseudo. It's not scientific at all, so it can't be
Yeah.
pseudoscience. It's all just
Gobbledygook.
conspiracy theory, like happy dream
Yeah.
story time.
And as far as I can tell, they do not need this Haba for their plans beyond its significance to them. They have a shell corporation called GRS, which is staffed by members of both the Brotherhood and the Crusade for Genetic Purity. They ever create a virus that they will disperse in the Earth's water supply.
All of the Earth's what? Wait, the Earth only has the one water supply that they're going to disperse this virus in? Okay, just going to say that out loud. Because some people get their water from aquifers, some from oceans that are desalinated, some from lakes like we do.
They have long-term plans with the water cycle. It's all good.
They'd be better off if they took some tips from COVID-19 at this point. Jeez.
Every evil organization needs a secret base, and we have one in the Moonchild. This is the space station that is 25,000 miles, 40,233 kilometers above the Earth. Those private backers I mentioned were the Brotherhood of Purity.
Ah, okay. Is it still a resort?
Not entirely, no.
Is there a swimming pool?
Probably.
Is there a tanning bed? Can I get my
Probably.
GTL? Or my gym, my tan, my laundry? You didn't know that? That's from like Jersey Shore
No.
era. GTL.
Oh, I never. Why would I ever watch Jersey Shore?
Oh, I didn't watch it, but it was memeable before we knew memeable was a thing.
Yeah. All these evil organizations need a good guy foil, and here we find Capricorn, which stands
I
for.
already hate it, by the way.
You're going to hate this even more. Which stands for Civilian Agency for the Protection of the Rights of Individuals and the Creation of Order, Reason, and Neutrality.
Get out of my house. Get out of my house. You know what? No. And for neutrality, too. Oh, we want to be centerists. You're making it hard for us to be centerists, so can we stop being centerists? Just call yourself the centerist and just embrace the fact that you just sit and squat in the middle of any debate that that anybody's having right now. Yes, because I want to be the centrist on freaking slavery. Jesus.
I don't think it's that type of neutrality. I think it's more like.
Okay.
well,
It's just so painful for you
Here's
to
the thing.
read that
I
out.
couldn't find that on the wiki. I had to go to that fan site that I mentioned, and it was in a forum thread where people are like, "What does this mean? What does this stand for?"
Why are
And
we...
it's buried in like one text box in the game somewhere. So they are a benevolent secret organization which covertly protects society from other dangerous secret groups. So it's basically secret group versus secret group.
We are secret because we want to get rid of all the secrets.
Capricorn's agents are, it just sounds weird to say that. Capricorn's agents are sent to infiltrate dangerous groups such as doomsday cults, terrorist groups, conspiracies, and political cabals and unravel them from the inside out. Laudable goals.
Do they explain Waco? Because I don't think
think so.
I don't think they succeeded in doing
Capricorn's
that well.
actions are, well, here, we knew about Waco. Here's the thing. Capricorn's actions are so discreet that its targets are eliminated before the public even knew there was a threat.
Oh, my Lord. Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm just going to have to go with that.
Capricorn has crafted a chip that will overload Moonchild's reactor. Tex gets knocked out and inadvertently finds himself at the base.
What?
I'm trying to get through a Tex Murphy adventure as a single story. Will take its own episode.
Wait a minute. You said, oh, yeah, this is about a guy who's a PI in the middle of a cyberpunk world in San Francisco. And suddenly I'm on this voyage that involves people that believe in astral plane knives or whatever the heck this Habua is. And then secret organizations that are sniping secret organizations, dogs and cats living together.
Mass
hysteria.
Yeah. So Tex ends up on the Moonchild. He kind of hems and haws a little bit. It's kind of weird, but he does eventually decide to help and bring down the station with some allies there,
Okay.
ending the threat for now. As the big PI in the sky laments, evil never dies.
James Earl Jones would know this.
Yes. And honestly, this may be a shorter episode, but I'm going to end it there because I just threw a lot of names and organizations at you.
What the heck did you just talk? That's it?
I didn't even get into
Oh.
things like Gideon Enterprises or the Tesla Cache or the Oracle Stone or the
Okay.
fact that Martians exist
So we're coming back because there's just so much to cover.
or the crash at Roswell.
Oh, don't. Ooh,
We'll definitely be back to Tex Murphy in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover, and I feel like you only covered a small section of it.
I only covered a few organizations. There's actually a little bit more. I think it's a Law and Order party is involved in a secret project with Gideon Enterprises that deals with the reduction of the mutant quote. I want to say race, but it's not. It is a race.
Is it a genophage? Are we doing?
I
Are we
don't-
doing a Solarian?
I don't remember because I didn't write it in here, so I didn't research deeply into it because it was just getting a lot of organization complication going on.
Okay.
So there was a whole thing with that, and that was a weird thing because one of the founders of that company is a mutant. So it's just all sorts of weird stuff all over the place. There's daggers everywhere in the shadows in Tex Murphy because it's a noir PI thing.
Right.
It is. The games themselves are an acquired taste, I feel now. Like back in the day, they made more sense. Now it's kind of like you have to be in the mindset for this full motion video.
Right. It's less
It's
captivating.
kind of dated, and I like them still. Like I like the idea of it. Mm-hmm. And I've always liked the idea of the full motion video. Myst does them pretty decently
Right.
sometimes. In fact, Abduction, which we'll cover eventually, is done by the same people as Myst is done by. Mm-hmm. And they used some full motion video in there as well.
Oh, okay.
I don't know who does it better. I want to say Cyan did it a little bit better in Abduction, but Abduction's also a newer game.
Right.
So that's where we're going to stop on Tex Murphy for now.
Oh my gosh, I need a breather. Like that was just too much.
I brushed over a lot. And if you want to go look at the Wikipedia entry for these games, they are dense because it's different objects, different items, how puzzles are done, who you talk to, how you talk to them
Right.
changes outcomes. There's like 3 or 4 paths through most of these games,
Wow. Okay.
which is impressive for the time.
right. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of that like choice being an option situation.
Well, you have to realize, like, even Tesla Effect has, I think, 3 different endings, but conversations have multiple paths through them. And it's not as simple as we have to voice act it. You have to have somebody act it
Right. Exactly.
because it's a full motion video.
Right. You can't just have somebody do the same gesture for 5 different lines.
Right.
So, well, I will say I'm thoroughly impressed with how ridiculous this universe is. And
It's such a B movie, isn't it?
yeah, and this is gonna be the opposite of like. So I remember you did Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and I liked it so much. I was like, I've got to watch a Let's Play of it because I feel so inspired by it, and it seems so cool. This is so complicated that I'm just gonna wait for you to do another episode on this. I just can't. I can't wrap my head around it. I could see why you said earlier. I tweeted before we recorded that you said your brain was exploding and hopefully mine wouldn't, and mine is leaking out of my ears.
My brain was exploding because, so about 2 hours before we recorded, I was still doing my last minute research, and that's when I started typing in those names from who used to be part of the Brotherhood, like who their members were.
Right.
And that's when I was like, oh my God, that's all tied to this one book from this weirdo. Like,
Yeah, I'm just sitting here trying to finish my work at my desk. Like, what is he going on about? What the heck? All right. Well, guys, if you want to hear more ridiculous, crazy world stuff like this, make sure that you follow us on your preferred podcast thing, Imajuber. And in fact, if you can,
your brain really is hurting.
yeah, it hurts so much. And if you want to leave a review, please do. That helps other people find this beautiful podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter @LoreTogether. You can reach out to us on email, loretogether@gmail.com. And let us know if you'd like us to review another game that's going to make me bleed from my nose spontaneously.
And
or
if you would
something
like to
that.
get early access to our episodes or access to our bi-weekly streams where we play through the most recent game we've talked about, you can do that on patreon.com/loretogether, where it's a per episode thing. We're actually going to change our Patreon goals
Yes.
soon.
Yeah. We've got to make some of them a little like it's.
We mistyped basically.
Yeah, we
they're
mistyped.
double what they should be based on
Right.
the episodes we do.
Right. So help us achieve our goals. Woo!
And thank you guys for listening.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much. We appreciate every time we see somebody download this show. We heart you because it's nice to know we're not the only people who love listening to this stuff. It's so insane.
Thank you for listening, guys.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.